Well, Happy New Year and welcome to the National Women's Business Council public meeting. My name is Tanae Dolphin and I serve as the Executive Director and Designated Federal Officer for NWBC. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment and thank a hardworking staff, a dedicated council, and our incredible guests for your flexibility and willingness to move this important day-long dialogue from an in-person convening to a virtual meeting. Your steadfast commitment is appreciated, and a special thank goes to our public affairs associate who is stretching beyond her portfolio to produce a dynamic Zoom meeting experience for all of us. As customary, I would like to level set this conversation by sharing basic background and context. Congress created the National Women's Business Council, a bipartisan federal advisory committee, in 1988 with the passage of H.R. 5050. This is the same piece of legislation that allowed women business owners to apply for a loan without a male co-signer. It is also the same legislation that piloted the women's business centers, which now boast of a WBC in every state. NWBC is an independent source of advice to the White House, Congress, and the U.S. Small Business Administration on issues of importance to women's business owners. NWBC provides counsel through the publication of the annual report, which contains a set of policy recommendations, research, and the critical outreach efforts that help to inform the council's work. The council and staff are committed to providing a more inclusive platform where women entrepreneurs across the country from all walks of life can feel heard, supported, and connected to legislatures and key decision makers in our nation's capital. We continue to work toward the goal of improving the state of women business enterprise and helping strengthen the communities in which women small business owners operate and serve. As you all know, today's meeting is public. It was appropriately noticed in the Federal Register. We will prepare minutes of today's meeting and make them available to the public within 90 calendar days. The minutes of our prior public meetings are available on our website, nwbc.gov. Our council members are gathered today to fulfill their charge. The objective for today at a high level is to share what the council has learned in 2024, strengthen partnerships in support of policy implementation, and to hear from stakeholders about priority issues for council's consideration in 2025. Today's agenda is packed. We're going from 10 to 4. And we hope that this virtual option will allow you to stay with us for the entirety of our meeting. After the chair address, we will have remarks from the Associate Administrator of the Office of Entrepreneurial Development, Aditi Dussault, followed by a special address from SBA's 27th Administrator, Isabel Casillas Guzman. The subcommittee chairs will present the 2024 policy recommendations. This will be followed by remarks and a global call to action from the HR 5050 advocate and architect, Virigina Littlejohn. Before we break for lunch, Councilmember Dr. Shakenna Williams will facilitate a policy panel discussion on embedding entrepreneurial education in K-12 curriculum and career training opportunities. Should we remain on schedule, we will break for lunch at 1 p.m. and resume the meeting at 2. This afternoon, instead of a business pitch competition, we will host a riveting and informative policy pitch session as the council explores focus areas for 2025. Finally, we will hear comments before adjourning the meeting. If you could go to the agenda slide. For your reference, today's agenda can be found in the Eventbrite registration, social media posts, and email. Now, as I call roll, I have the honor to introduce the women who have volunteered their time, energy, and expertise to serve as council members. As I call roll, please say here or present. Chair Seema Lajavardian.
Present.
Samantha Abrams.
Present.
Brandy Butler,
Present.
Karen Clark Cole,
Present.
Kathy Cochran,
Present.
Selena Rogers Dickerson,
Present.
Jen Earl, Roberta McCullough, Jenny Poon,
Present.
Pamela Prince Eason,
Present.
Katika Roy,
Present.
Leslie Lynn Smith,
Present.
Dr. Shakenna Williams.
Present.
Thank you, council members. We have a quorum. Now I'd like to introduce our phenomenal chair, Seema Lajavardian, who will share information from our 2024 report. If you have a copy, please follow along, or you can download it found on our website. Chair.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Tene. I wanted to reiterate what she said, that you were all wonderful to adjust from in-person to virtual, and thank the staff for making this happen. It took a lot the past few days, so thank you very much, everyone. And just want to say I am just so honored to chair this incredible group of women that I've come to adore and admire. Just welcome, everyone. I'm Seema Lajavardian. I am the proud chair of the National Women's Business Council. As I reflect back on the council's work in 2024, I am just so encouraged by the progress forward that we've observed and the good news we've heard from colleagues in the government and from our partners in the private and academic sectors. For example, it was so meaningful to us to see the White House, Congress, and SBA each responding to the call by NWBC and advocates for expanded access to affordable childcare services. Over the past years, policymakers announced regulatory changes to lower costs of families eligible for subsidized care, new programming to support childcare providers that are small independent businesses, and bipartisan agreement to increase federal funding for early childhood education and care. Our year has led up and culminated in publication of the 2024 NWBC annual report last month. This annual report gives us the opportunity to show you, our valued partners and stakeholders, the compilation of everything we've heard and learned over the past year in the course of active outreach to stakeholders, education in support of women entrepreneurs and business ownership. I don't know if the camera sees it, but oh well, I guess my camera doesn't see it. But if you have it with you and if you look through it, you'll see how much work has gone through it, and we're just so proud of it. As I describe a non-exhaustive list of highlights of the year for the council, those of you who have copies can turn to page 26 and follow along. Important moments for the past year included celebrating the 35th anniversary of HR 5050 and NWBC's creation. In addition to receiving and sharing congratulatory messages from members of Congress, SBA Administrator Guzman, and women's business leaders, we hosted a virtual discussion between current and former council members to mark the occasion and all the positive changes that have happened since. We also took stock of our policy influence and wins over the years, and were so heartened by reminders of NWBC's important role in critical development like creation of the WOSB certification program. Women's History Month was also once again a high point of public engagement around women's business ownership. In March of 2024, NWBC helped to plan and co-host the 3rd Annual Women's Business Summit. The day-long event provided rich opportunities to connect with business owners and leaders in women's business enterprises and to learn and discuss during panels and one-on-one conversations. We held public meetings featuring presentations about women business organizations, policy agendas, new research, and entrepreneurs' lived experiences in January, June, and September of 2024. Our in-person gatherings in January and September also created opportunities to hold face-to-face dialogues with entities ranging from the White House Gender Policy Council to the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights in January. We presented their 2023 annual report and recommendations at a briefing for congressional staff sponsored by the Senate Small Business Committee. NWBC's roundtable conversations in April, June, and July each brought together a critical mass of experts to explore key topics and potential innovations, and many of the recommendations you will hear about today draw on the thoughts shared during those meetings. Just as we asked our partners to participate in the activities we organized, our council members and staff participated in women's business events in fiscal year 2024. We benefited in particular from being exhibitors at WeBank and AWBC's annual conferences, and from the opportunity to provide results of our STEM research to AWBC attendees, and thoughts on the state of women's business ownerships at NABO's annual advocacy days gatherings and the Diana International Research Institute annual conference. In 2024, I was very excited to start our Instagram live series, Power and Policy, to draw attention to our women business leaders and influential women in the business world to share their stories and policy-related insights and much more. Interviewees thus far have included successful entrepreneurs like 13 Loon founder Nyako Greco and Ice Cream Jubilee founder Victoria Lai, and national and international thought leaders like former First Lady of Iceland, Eliza Reid. This year, we announced results of several NWBC research projects, about which you'll find out more in the annual report, beginning at page 6. We also launched new efforts around improving outcomes of women-owned small business procurement programs, sustaining the surge of business creation by Black women and Latinas, and strengthening understanding of NWBC's long-term impact. In November, we hosted a webinar to share the research report, Engineering Change, a Blueprint for Strengthening Women's STEM Entrepreneurship. This project conducted econometric analysis of the relationship between various explanatory factors and women's business ownership in STEM fields. We were surprised that increasing receipt of STEM college degrees corresponded to less STEM entrepreneurship by women, but also encouraged by the observation that Black women and Latinas' ownership rates increased strongly as equity funding and patenting activities rose. Last month, we published a paper commissioned by NWBC and authored by Dr. Aji Fatou Diane of the Census Bureau, examining the impact of age on women's business ownership. This analysis made the intriguing discovery that the rank of women business owners under the age of 45 swelled between 2012 and 2020. And over this period, their share of all women-owned businesses increased by 10.5% age points. Our next release will examine lived experiences of women entrepreneurs in rural and tribal areas and recommend methods to support their success. We already know these will include customizing program designs to local conditions and needs, and leveraging established community relationships and structures to deliver support. We have done our best to encapsulate the knowledge and wisdom that all of our engagements and research have produced in policy recommendations that my fellow council members will share shortly. But first, it is my honor to introduce Associate Administrator for SBA's Office of Entrepreneurial Development, Aditi Dussault. Associate Administrator Dussault has served in a number of roles at SBA, and her work has included support to the Office of Government Contracting and Business Development System Modernization, and launching the Mentor Protege program. She was also previously worked for WeBank and the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and has assisted small business federal contractors and consultants. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Associate Administrator Aditi.
All right, good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for having me here. Everyone, I think, who has participated in these meetings in person or virtually before knows that I love being in this space, not just because a couple of my former bosses hang out here all the time, hi Pam, but because of really the entire fantastic group of council members and participants that we get for this important work of the council. So I'm going to start by saying I continue to be impressed by the work of the council. This report, I was really excited to read it and to continue to think about the questions that you all are asking and how important they are in terms of continuing to advance women entrepreneurs and what work the council has before it, especially in this time of great political change. So I'm really excited to see what lies ahead for you all. I'm really excited to be a part of that work, maybe, well, obviously in a different role shortly, but it is really important that we continue to do the work that we've been doing. And I also want to congratulate the NWBC on getting this done. I know it's a big task, and then the way that you continue to pivot. I mean, not just for weather-related changes and things like that, but participating in the last meeting that we had in person, to see the way that the committees continue to think about the work that is relevant and the way that the committees are pivoting to continue to do the type of work that is needed to really understand what challenges women entrepreneurs are facing. So it's really important work that you guys are doing. It's amazing that you guys are getting these publications out and then holding these forums for us to have these conversations to keep moving the ball forward. I'm honestly, this is a bittersweet moment. I do love being here, but it is very sad that I'm going to be here this is my last chance to attend in this capacity. It has been a great privilege to be a part of the Biden-Harris administration and to inform the work of this committee or this council from this role and also participate in it. And I'm also very proud of the things that I personally have been able to accomplish. Obviously, with the help of many people at this agency, we've made a lot of great changes, great improvements, and I'm going to take a small victory lap for myself right now because I feel like the work that we've done is important and I want to make sure that you all know about it. I mean, obviously, I'm a policy nerd, and that's why I get excited about the reports that you guys do and the conversations that we have. And I'm most enthusiastic about the regulatory changes that we've been able to make, and hopefully we'll continue to be able to improve them from the outside. Because I believe, particularly around the certification programs, the harmonization of that work, so that if you're a woman and a veteran, if you're a woman and a minority, if you are any number of those intersectional identities, getting into these programs should be the same regardless of how they are. And as I've talked to folks who are going to continue in this work, as I move on, as the administration moves on, I'm very encouraged by the clarity that my colleagues have around how this is so important. There was a lot of resistance in terms of like, oh, this is going to be too big, too hard for us to get done. But now that we've kind of gotten the ball rolling, there's a lot of momentum there. And I hope that that work continues, because the benefits already, when you go to the public and say, hey, how are things going? How do you feel about, for example, the vet cert system and how that launched? People are like, this is so much better. We see what you guys are doing. It's going to take some hiccups with maybe some of the tech implementation or maybe some clarifications in the regs, but we're really moving in the right direction for serving the customer, the people who are trying to be in this program, the way that the program, the way that people benefit from these programs. We're really trying to get that first and then have the things that we need as government to review and so forth to be not secondary, but kind of like the details part. So kind of really aligning on that big picture of centering the customer and the customer's experience. And I think we've done an incredible job with that. And the certification experience is just one of them. And then of course I personally got to work on the 8A program and making sure that program could continue as it has been. And we had to make some changes because of that court injunction, and I'm so proud of the way that program has continued and that we've continued to expand the access that our federal contractors have, our small business federal contractors have within the federal marketplace. I hope that continues. I know that this council will continue to advocate for the inclusion of women in the federal supply chain. It's going to be exciting to see what happens next. And then, I know that the administrator will speak a little bit more on this, and I really appreciate her framing of this in one of the recent conversations I had with her. I got to work a lot on our agency's equity work as a distinct, thing that we were talking about. And, she made the wonderful point that this is everything that we do, is about making sure that everything is accessible for all Americans. And we can really integrate that into, and we have integrated that because it is how we exist here at SBA, and it's so fundamental to the work that we do. So it's something that I feel very confident in that this agency is going to keep pressing ahead with. And I really, I can't wait kind of to see what happens next. But I do want to tell you all about something that I know is happening very soon, because we've been working on it in my office in conjunction with the Office of Women's Business Ownership, which is now helmed by Lori Gillen. I'm so excited about the work that she's going to be doing to continue the work of OBO. But we are very close to, as you all know, in the springtime, we talked about some of the important work that SBA needs to do to fully expand and take advantage of the funding that is available for women's business centers. Now, obviously, we can't go over that threshold about how much money we can give WBCs, but we can certainly make sure that there are more WBCs. And it's really been, OBO has really spearheaded this effort, but it's really taken many hands to really get the work done around the process that we went through to expand the WBC network. We're on the home stretch. We keep talking about running through the tape, and we in OED and OBO are definitely doing that to get these grants awarded. But we are going to have some really big success with respect to coming out with additional WBCs that are working focused on government contracting, because we all know well, I just talked about why that's so important to me personally, but we all know that government contracting is such an important place for women entrepreneurs to be. There's so much opportunity there. We are also creating these childcare focused WBCs. Many of us have experienced, especially on a snow day, the importance of childcare. Even my cats complain to me. I don't have kids, I have cats, but man, sometimes you got to get things done and you have to move on, and making sure that your kids are taken care of is really important. And if you want to play in that space and have a business in that space, and you need the support, because so many women who do childcare because that's what's expected of them, and then realize they can grow and take on a few more, and then get the licensing, get a place, get some real income going. We want to make sure that women have that as a pathway, and everybody has that as a pathway, because we desperately have that need for childcare across the country. So these WBCs will be coming out very soon, and it's just so important and wonderful that we've gotten so close to getting these this childcare expansion taken care of. And actually, I want to take a moment to say, Lori also reminded me that this is going to remain a focus of OBO in terms of trying to get more resources and a guide together online for how to start a childcare business. And there will be additional support, not just through these WBCs, but more generally through SBA.gov and My SBA Learning, about how women can get these important businesses started, supported, and more importantly, sustained, right? It's great to start, but can you continue, right? I feel like some of my friends who are parents have had their childcare centers close on them, with the shifts post-pandemic. And, you don't want to be in the middle of a, Thursday at work and find out you got to find childcare by next Monday. That's really, really tough. So we hope to create an ecosystem to support that with these childcare center WBCs. And then lastly, generally speaking, kind of creating an opportunity for us to expand the WBC reach, which is around core services and moving to virtual and expanding the geographic territory where we are serving. So not just being focused on one geographic location, but having virtual offerings and getting to some of the more distant corners of the country, including the territories like the Virgin Islands. So I'm really excited about this upcoming accomplishment. You can kind of see me approaching the tape right now on that one. So like it's slow-mo right now, but I talk fast and I get through the things that I need to. And I'm very excited about the next part of this meeting, as well as the rest of it, which is to be able to announce my boss and my friend, our SBA administrator, Isabel Guzman, has joined us today. 27th administrator of the agency, probably the best one, easily the best one. She has traveled across the country visiting with entrepreneurs to not just talk about the work that SBA is doing, but really understand what they need and really deliver that. And she's going to talk about some of those accomplishments. I'm excited to hear about them again. I hope you are too. And it's just, I'll say it for myself. I know she feels this way. It's been a privilege to be in this role and to be able to serve you all. And hopefully we'll be around soon again. So Administrator Guzman, good morning, welcome. And I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Aditi, for the introduction and for sharing some of the highlights from OBO and OED as well. I appreciate it. And also want to thank your chair for the NWBC, Seema. I really appreciate the partnership that you've provided to me, the collaboration, the great leadership that you've demonstrated in this role and in your service throughout the Biden-Harris administration. So thank you so much for your service and your incredible light and energy that you bring to the table, as well as your expertise. I greatly appreciate it. And it is a great morning. It is beautiful and snowy in DC. I've made it into the office, so you can tell it's not so bad, but all federal buildings are closed. SBA is not in a federal building, so allows me to come into the office and be with you today. So thank you so much. And I'm grateful that you've invited me to join you in this last meeting of the NWBC Advisory Committee during my tenure. And I greatly appreciate how much public service means to communities around the country, and your service as members of this committee is really invaluable. The insights that you share, the work that you've done, your incredible annual report that you've put together. I know how much work went into studying these issues, understanding the perspectives of women entrepreneurs around the country, and understanding the impact that they've had, and how we can continue to advance them into the future is incredible work. And so thank you for your service on behalf of all of the incredible businesses and communities that are impacted by your work. And then, of course, to your executive director, Tanae. I don't see her on the screen, but I know it's a small print I can't see, but or small little boxes I can't see everybody. But I appreciate the hard work and dedication that you've demonstrated. I got to work with you during the Obama-Biden administration, briefly got to know you, and then as well in this role, really appreciate the energy that you bring to the role as well, and the expertise, and really rebuilding this incredible office, ensuring that we could stay focused on the mission at NWBC and really delivering year after year. So thank you so much for your service as well to the SBA and to the NWBC. I wanted to, have this moment to just reflect. This is a moment of reflection. I have 2 weeks left as SBA administrator, the 27th SBA administrator, and it's really been remarkable to be at helm of an agency during this tremendous scale, during this tremendous economic disruption of the COVID pandemic, and during this historic economic recovery where the United States did lead globally in its ability to rebound, really showing the resilience that Americans have and our communities have, and of course, the backbone, small businesses. And I know that you have all heard of the economic picture, but I think it's worth sharing and reflecting on what small businesses bring to the table. The work at the SBA is focused on making sure that small businesses and Americans and small business owners are able to start, grow, build resilient businesses, that communities are able to recover from disasters quickly, because we know how devastating they can be on our small businesses. And truly that mission of building the American dream of business ownership it goes right to the heart of all of our programs and our work here at the SBA. And what we've seen during this incredible past 4 years is small businesses put to test in terms of extreme challenges with the COVID pandemic, the subsequent supply chain disruptions that burst inflation, and that really caused challenges for every single entrepreneur. But really, it's remarkable what we've been able to accomplish. The economy is strong, thanks in large part, from my perspective, to the small business boom, where nearly 21 million new business applications have been filed across the country. Really, they are the ones who are the job creators. 2/3 of net new jobs are created by small businesses. They employ half the private workforce. And 16 million job creation number under President Biden's leadership is thanks to this incredible resilience of our small businesses. And those job creation numbers and income levels, wage levels are just, truly remarkable in terms of the economic picture, but really recognizing that it's small businesses that are behind that is so important. The lowest average unemployment rate of any administration in 50 years. And I would say largely part to this incredible entrepreneurial spirit that this country has. And that is truly admired around the world. As I traveled and met with other countries, they look to replicate the SBA. They look to replicate our incredible, startup nation, historic value to this global economy. And as we look at what small businesses have had to face, there's been incredible challenges, of course, with the Great Resignation, these workforce challenges, the supply chain disruptions, and subsequent inflationary pressures that persisted, the high interest rates, which of course SBA is quite familiar with, and its impact on our small businesses. But there's also been incredible opportunities. Under President Biden's administration, there's been over $1 trillion in private sector investment. Really, these historic pieces of legislation have pushed private investment across multiple sectors. And we're seeing this small business boom across multiple industries, but in particular in technology and digital companies, as well as we see this boom in this digital economy. And so it's so exciting to reflect on the past 4 years, what we've been able to overcome as a nation, and seeing our economy rebound, and really seeing our main streets, our manufacturing centers, our innovation centers power this nation and continue to give us hope. Because I know you all know this personally as entrepreneurs. Small businesses have to have that hope for our nation. You have to be hopeful if you're jumping in, risking all, and starting a business in this country. And so I'm really proud of what our small business owners have done around the nation, but as well to the incredible employees at the SBA. We are, as you know, a very small agency. We have about $1 billion allocated to us every year, most significant amount to all these incredible grant programs that expand our reach into communities around the country, to help back the incredible lending and investment portfolio programs, which are high performing and net zero to the taxpayer in terms of subsidy impact. And so really the work that we do is just so vital. And I came into this position, obviously, with a strong background in small business, hoping to make a difference in what I saw the SBA could become. I've experienced SBA as a staffer, operationalizing policy and programs during Obama Biden, and then, of course, led small business during the pandemic in California, and have been an entrepreneur myself multiple times, and come from a multi-generational family of entrepreneurs. And I recognize the multiple hats that small businesses wear, the grit and determination it takes to run a business. And I just wanted to make sure that SBA was as entrepreneurial as our small businesses, and could pivot during this massive scale of the agency to really modernize, adapt its programs to better meet businesses where they are, and especially our women entrepreneurs, because we have seen that the small business boom is still, again, as it has been for the past 10 years, entrepreneurship, but this boom in particular has been driven by women and people of color who have been starting businesses at the highest rates. Women are starting at double the rate of men. Truly, they are that job creation. They are that new business creation as well. And so it's exciting to really think about what we could become as a nation and our economy globally, and its impact if we truly leverage the great talent that we have in this country with our women entrepreneurs and people of color and underserved communities overall, which SBA defines as rural, as well as startups and low income and veterans. And so what I've focused on doing over this past 4 years is truly integrating access across our programs so that we can see this changing phase of entrepreneurship overcome some of those historic barriers that have limited their growth and job creation value to this country. It's incredibly inefficient the way we operate, where we see such small numbers of investments going to women-owned businesses when they're the ones starting businesses and could be the job creators. I'll never forget a conversation I had with one of the largest women manufacturers, probably the largest Black female manufacturer in the country. She does gluten-free food products. She couldn't get her products on the shelf, so she started on Amazon and has just taken off, built her own manufacturing facility out in Illinois. An incredible success story, but she was so challenged to get a loan. And she shared with me that where she went, she was denied, despite the fact that on paper, she comes from a finance background, she knew that she was eligible for funding, and actually asked her for her husband's signature to get the loan. Of course, she was incredibly insulted wilted and moved on, but finally saw a lender who agreed with her and funded her to build this manufacturing facility, and because of SBA. And so she's incredibly thankful that the backing of the federal government helped her realize her dream. And that's what we've been focused on. How do we clear those gaps and those barriers for our entrepreneurs so that they can access capital, whether that's lending or investment. And so I've led the most historic transformations of our regulatory process, technology investments at the SBA so that we could finally shatter some of those barriers to accessing capital. And as a result, we've had some incredible success across our capital programs, in particular to women. Last year, we funded $4.8 billion to women entrepreneurs, saw an increase in our funding to women-owned businesses as we did the year before, which was $4.5 billion. We're on this trajectory to try to be more inclusive and ensure that women can get the dollars they need to be efficient, to not have to pay high costs of capital or forego opportunity to access contracts or trade or expansion as a result of limitations in our financial systems. And so I am so proud of the work that we've done to really unlock capital for more entrepreneurs by streamlining our processes, by investing in our new MySBA loans portfolio, and as a result, being able to expand our lenders and adding new lenders who reach underserved markets. And so this work was foundational to really build the SBA of the future, and we're seeing it in the numbers year over year, and we'll continue to see that hike when those changes are left in place in terms of simplifying our regulatory environment and allowing alternative lenders into the system. And it's not just about the capital. For me, I came with the focus of a customer-centric, technology-forward, and equitable approach to everything that we do here at the agency. However, it's also about the revenue growth opportunities. And the economic recovery was thanks to this incredible consumer spending, which any entrepreneur will tell you, if you have somebody with money coming in your door to buy, that's the dream, right? And then I learned that at a young age working in my family's businesses. But what we've done within the programs that we incentivize government contracting. We want to see a diverse industrial base. We incentivize trade. We try to ensure that folks can access markets abroad, since that's where over 98% of the world's consumers are. These programs are something that we've tried to focus on as well. And I know Aditi mentioned briefly contracting, but our investments in contracting really were centered with how do we unlock and move beyond that 5% goal that we've been struggling to meet for women-owned small businesses in the federal government. We've launched MySBA certifications with focusing on leading with our women and ensuring that we could have a streamlined application process that women could access to get their license to then go hunt for contracts in the federal government. This multi-certification program, MySBA certifications, is now an easy, I understand, less than 30 minutes to apply. And to streamline process, we've invested in customer service so that we could unlock some of that potential for those women who want to get certified to do business with the federal government. And we've just begun. We've received thousands of applications from women-owned businesses, as well as across the certifications. You can get 4 certifications with that one application, which is truly remarkable. And we know that this will unlock and help us achieve that 5% and go beyond. In fiscal 23, we almost reached that 5%, and I think we're going to be nearly close in 24. We'll be releasing numbers soon, but the $30.9 billion that we did in federal contracting in fiscal 23 meant job creation for women-owned small businesses. It meant sustainability, resilience with those sticky government contracts, and so we want to see more of that, and that's why we've invested heavily in ensuring that government contracting is more accessible. And we will be rolling out, I'll share with you all, a new tool that's similar to our lender match, where you can access at sba.gov and connect to any of our lenders. We're going to launch a GovCon match tool that will allow our businesses to better focus on business development once they get certified, because we know it's the process of preparing to do government contracting, getting certified, and then winning those contracts. And when it comes to our women, we're investing in our WBCs so that they can help with government contracting. We're investing in simplifying our processes and technologies to get certified, and we want you to go after and get those contracts. So I'm excited about the changes and what that'll mean for women-owned small businesses, and continue the advocacy in that area in particular, because it's important that the federal government achieve its mission with all its strong entrepreneurs, and that's including the incredible women entrepreneurs that are out there. The last thing I wanted to just focus and share with you all today is that I'm incredibly hopeful in the future based on the incredible women entrepreneurs that I've met, many of you, as well as many women on the road. I do spend quite a bit of time on the road, having the expertise and knowledge of all our programs, being able to be out in the field and hear personal experiences allows me to continuously iterate. You know that talking to your customers is important to constant iteration in your business. That's how I focus and lead. But it's truly been remarkable. I've just met these incredible women entrepreneurs that give me hope in the future. The resolve, the focus and attention to detail, that going with your gut and relying on your incredible instincts to succeed and win in business is just so impressive. And I'm looking forward to continuing to track the work of NWBC as the independent voice and advocate on behalf of women entrepreneurs at the agency, and ensuring that the agency continues to focus on equity. It is a business imperative. It is necessary for our economy to continue to achieve in the future. One of the most stark conversations I had, I think, was at a Visa event that I did with a Small Business Digital Alliance that we launched to help businesses get more digital. And their economist was sharing the fact that 10 years from now, forget beyond the pandemic, let's think 10 years from now, what businesses should start thinking about and preparing for. And they saw, flat growth into the future. You're going to have to go global in order to see growth, and recognizing where you will see growth is in these very communities that have been held back and have been restricted by barriers that still exist, that I hear firsthand accounts of every single day from our women entrepreneurs and from people of color. And so unlocking that potential is how the U.S. will be able to achieve growth. And companies that recognize that will be the ones that win, recognize that equity is really truly about creating opportunity, which is at the very core of the American dream in this country. Believing in opportunity, believing in an ability to grow and expand and better yourselves and your family is really at the core of what drives America and its resilience. And so ensuring that everyone can access that opportunity is what is core to our democracy. So from my perspective, small businesses, the work that we've done over the past 4 years, the work that the SBA will continue to do in the future is core not only to the economic empowerment of our country, our global competitiveness, but as well our democracy. And so thank you so much for the work that you do, for your continued advocacy, and for being partners this past 4 years during my tenure as the SBA administrator. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Administrator. We are just so in awe of your leadership, of your vision. Under you, just so many incredible things have happened. We've seen you work so tirelessly, travel literally everywhere, meeting with, I think, everyone. It's just been really remarkable. And thank you for letting us be where we are. I know as a council, we've just been very lucky to have you at the helm of SBA and see all these incredible changes happen. So I want to say thank you from all of us. And I know we had some council members that also wanted to say things.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I wish we could have been in person. That's my only regret.
I know.
Snow delays.
Huge regret. I'm going to break the rules. I know I was supposed to raise my hand, but I have to take this opportunity to not only thank you for the work that you've done during your tenure, not only as administrator, but again, as you said, being a part of SBA for a long time, but it has been a tremendous honor to work for you and alongside you. As Aditi said, you have been the best boss. I've had a number of bosses, and there's no one quite like you. So committed, but also so understanding and supportive and encouraging along this way. As an executive director of this amazing council with these amazing council members, I have to admit that it was, watching you sort of steer this amazing ship at SBA that really continued to fuel us, fuel the office, energize us to do more and to lean into the work that you were doing. So thank you for your service. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your leadership. I'm going to follow you wherever you go. Where are you going next?
Jenny?
Yeah, Administrator, I just want to say thank you as well as a business owner and a leader that helps also like directly small businesses. It has been incredible to see the impact of your work and honestly the tech forward thinking of your initiatives, to see that roll out and actually impact businesses on the ground, all the way from the beginning of your term, post-pandemic, and having to deal with that mess. And then, like nothing is perfect, but to be able to see how rapidly you responded to any of the issues that came up is just pretty incredible, especially working at a federal level. So I just wanted to say that you moved a big, big ship very quickly.
Samantha?
Good morning, Administrator. Echoing all of the gratitude. I can't believe post-pandemic, we are now in 2025, and what a massive orchestration you led. We saw that delicacy, agility, temperament in how you responded to entrepreneurs all over this country. But I'm particularly grateful for a conversation we had on the fateful morning of March 26, 2024, when we found out that the Francis Scott Key Bridge had been struck by a ship. And as you were leaving the event downtown DC, I was getting into the elevator. We embraced, and I said, what are we going to do? Because I'm already hearing from entrepreneurs who are going to be affected. And you said, we're going to get on this right away. And by that Friday, there was a release of a notification basically letting entrepreneurs, business owners know that there are going to be funds released, emergency funds that they can apply for that will help save their businesses. I personally know of 2 businesses who were able to salvage what they had because they've completely been affected by the bridge collapse. And there's just so many more. But when you have these stories that are hitting so close to home, and we're sitting on this council, we're doing this work, but then it lands at your doorstep, and you're like, this is the impact that we collectively have. You have just been a gift to us all. I personally think you will go down in the history books as one of the most just forward-thinking, powerful, thoughtful administrators for the SBA in a time that in our history we can't imagine experiencing again. So deep gratitude. I hope you just know how much we all love you, admire you, and are in deep gratitude for all that you've done, in addition to just being on the ground, but just being a support to this council and doing the work and us following you.
Leslie?
Thank you. This is a real love fest, but only because you are fully worthy, and we have the deepest amount of gratitude for your consequential leadership. I would only add to everything that my colleagues and friends have said, that it has been so lovely to see you center the lived experience of entrepreneurs and women and people of color in a way that I don't know we see so frequently in government leadership. So thank you for being a role model for what the future relationship with federal agencies can look like. I think you've really charted a beautiful path forward. I'm gonna, on behalf behalf of the entire community, rely on you for a little optimism and hope as we all transition through what are significant changes in roles, in the people with whom we have relationships, and are seeking ways to continue to have a powerful and positive impact. So I'm going to throw a question at you, Administrator, if I can. And this is not only for me, but for the people that are on this call with us. What are some ways that we can maintain the momentum of your administration's efforts, even in the face of new and emerging perspectives or changes in direction, particularly at the local level? I would love to have some of your thoughts as I march into 2025 with all of the ambition and optimism I can muster for ongoing effort in this space.
Well, thank you for that. And I'll thank everybody for their comments to date. I really appreciated it. It's heartfelt. And I'm starting to get emotional these next couple of weeks, but this is truly going to, set me off on a high. So thank you. I do think that's a valid, question as we want to maintain this incredible optimism that has fueled this small business boom. And it's really stark as I've traveled over the last few weeks and talking to entrepreneurs. They want to, entrepreneurs do like certainty as well. They like to be able to assess as much, of the risk that they're going to be continuing to sustain based on the environment, and questioning whether or not certain programs will continue to exist is one of them. But I would say this, that, we are at the SBA a public-private partnership, and fueled by, the advocacy of our private partners. Even in meeting with a group of banking CEOs the other day, I was really surprised at the lack of knowledge and awareness of how efficient and productive and frankly profitable SBA's programs, capital programs and investment programs are. It's important to have facts in the face of these claims of improvements around efficiencies that that are based on irreality. I mean, I've heard some wild stories that SBA has 1,000 district offices, so we have to shut down these federal offices around the country. It's like, I don't have 1,000 district offices, but I do say I have over 1,000 centers and support areas around the country, because that includes my SBDCs and my WBCs and my community navigators at the time. So there's a lot of misinformation being thrown around that makes SBA a target, or the claims of fraud, that have been made against the agency around COVID relief, which we have ascertained to be under $36 billion, not $200 billion, and that, mostly happened in 2020, 87% of it. And so, we need to, get a grasp on reality and facts. And so I do think it's important for the private partners to continue to research and uncover facts and continue, especially with NWBC's work, to do research to demonstrate the value of SBA's programs on the economy. And, there's some great studies and research, for example, on my disaster programs, which were at risk. I was unfunded for several months. I can't, believe it, for the Helene and Milton people. And I've now put out over $1.5 billion in offers since I got funding. We had folks within 24 hours of getting money from Congress get their cash right before Christmas. It brought me great joy. My team was working 7/10 throughout the holidays, 7 days, 10 hours a day, to make sure that it happened. But, we've now, put out over $500 million. And these programs perform. This is not a loss to the taxpayer. We collect on our debts at the SBA. And so, but McKinsey and the Wharton School and Harvard have all done research on the disaster programs and the impact of those loans into communities, showing that the success outcomes where there's over-indexing of SBA loans are stronger. Those communities have better growth trajectories over the years versus, either lack of recovery or no growth. And so, truly continuing to research and demonstrate the value of the programs at the SBA. I mean, there's been the SBIR program, for example, is up for reauthorization. Qualcomm alone, who attributes their success to getting an early SBIR small dollar award, was their tax contributions to this country probably paid for the entire program. I mean, it's just those types of research studies that demonstrate the true efficiency of this public-private partnership at the SBA, I think, is what will sustain these programs, and tracking and watching to see what disappears, because sometimes communities don't realize it until it's too late, until it's gone. And so I do think facts and research and the core of what NWBC does for women entrepreneurs in particular could be a great tool to ensure that programs are protected.
Thank you so much. I know we want to go on with this because there's so much to talk. Thank you for coming on today. Thank you for your leadership, for your service. I wanted to thank also Assistant Administrator Dussault for her passion and advocacy. And we will continue this hard work in your footsteps, and just looking forward to doing a lot more.
When I know my team's pulling me off for another meeting, but I just want to thank you so much for granting me this time to be with you all. You're all incredible. I look forward to tracking all your successes and your work of advocacy. I appreciate your public service. And for those of you who joined under my tenure, thank you for signing up. For those who stayed on during my tenure, thank you for staying on and believing in this mission above all, because when we collaborate and work together, that's how we'll continue to achieve for our women entrepreneurs. So thank you all. Have a wonderful 2025.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we can take an emotional 1 second and then move to the next. I'm very excited to turn the meeting over now to the council members who will speak on behalf of our subcommittees and present policy recommendations and the reasoning behind them, organized by 3 focus areas: access to opportunity, access to capital, and inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystems. My hope for 2025 is that these policy recommendations will help us realize the full economic potential for women entrepreneurs. We know from recently updated research led by NWBC partners, and this is always my favorite part, that women-owned businesses are a driving force in the US economy, accounting for 39.2% of all enterprises, employing 12.9 million workers, and contributing a remarkable 3.3 trillion in annual revenue. If we were able to maximize the impact of women-owned businesses and have women achieve the same average revenue firms as men, it would add a stunning 10.2 trillion to the economy. Please always repeat these numbers. So I think it's so important for everyone to understand the economic addition and capacity that women will add. And now I'm going to hand it over for Access to Opportunity Subcommittee Chair Selena Rogers-Dickerson, who will be our first presenter. Selena?
Good morning. Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you, Seema. I am Selena Rogers-Dickerson. In addition to my work with the council, I am the president and founder of Sarcor LLC, an engineering design and project management firm, and Celine LLC, a diverse business solutions company, both headquartered in Birmingham, Alabama. And from my base in Birmingham, I also serve as a mentor and community volunteer and help small businesses grow and thrive. On behalf of National Women's Business Council Access to Opportunity Subcommittee, I am pleased to present 2024 policy recommendations that advance robust access for women entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses that supports and procurement processes that government administers. Our full annual report, in case you need to see it, is available online. Explores the thought process underlying each of these recommendations in detail. Today, we will share some very brief background for each point. You You can find the selection of the report that I am discussing beginning at page 42. Our first recommendation is that federal agencies and their grantees micro-target outreach to disconnected women and women-owned businesses. We were inspired by repeated anecdotal reports of uncertainty about where to begin with business assistance programming, which were backed up by evidence such as the finding in the NWBC Commission interviews and surveys of business owners and governance leaders that awareness of federal resources among rural and tribal women entrepreneurs is nearly non-existent. Agency collaborators could leverage access and information to change the game for entrepreneurs who have been historically marginalized and may lack connections to options. Imagine, for example, if the IRS shared links to SBA small business guides in its communication with women who report self-employment in tax filings. Or imagine if, along with notice of an unsuccessful bid, WOSBs and EDWOSBs that sought and failed to win contracts receive introductions to Apex accelerators, WBCs, small business development centers, and other resource partners. Our second recommendation is that SBA create national business certification standards that can serve as the foundation for increased information sharing between public and private entities that serve women-owned and other businesses. We knew from our own experience and women entrepreneurs' testimonies that becoming a certified WOSB could be administratively taxing, but our appreciation for that fact moved to a new level when we learned that there are an estimated 300 to 400 business certifying bodies in the US. During our June roundtable discussion of certification, organizations shared their interest in closer collaboration and information sharing to reduce administrative burden for business owners and application reviewers. State, local, and private entities told NWBC that they see SBA as the best position to find middle ground between varying practices and to secure stakeholders' adherence. If certifying agencies shared data collection frameworks and data storage and transfer security protocols, and businesses could work with more certifiers with less effort, their participation in WOSB and similar programs would likely increase to benefit of purchasers everywhere. Our final recommendation is that government agencies use common bid and grant applications and make employees available to answer questions live. These innovations are intended and expected to neutralize advantages that larger, older, and incumbent provider firms experience in preparing quick responses to often complex RFPs. The federal government has changed the way it does business to ensure more opportunities for smaller firms, and it must continue this work while disparities persist between companies in the economy, which are overwhelmingly small and about 40% women-owned, and the composition of firms with federal contracts, which are just over 28% small and only 4.91% confirmed to be woman-owned. Our suggestions take account of WOSB's unique strengths, which include ability to leverage personal relationships, expand business opportunity. And now, Councilmember Karen Clark-Cole will share policy recommendations on behalf of the Access to Capital Subcommittee. Karen?
Thank you, Selena. I'm happy to present our Access to Capital Subcommittee recommendations, standing in for Chair Roberta McCullough, who was unable to join us today. My name is Karen Clark Cole, and I'm the co-founder and former CEO for 25 years of a user experience design firm, Blink UX, headquartered in Seattle, with 5 offices nationally. I founded 2 nonprofits and am the board chair for an all-girls school, author, and speaker. The experiences that I've had in these roles have illustrated the fundamental importance of fair access to financial resources to start and grow a company, and also fair access to information to know that being an entrepreneur is an option for women. Our subcommittee's first recommendation, found on page 46 of the annual report, is that SBA develop criteria for forgiving government-backed, privately administered loans, building on the successful administration of the Payback Protection Program, PPP. We are interested in models that can make it financially viable for women who have few or no assets to start a company. The PPP loans successfully disrupted many entrenched patterns of access to funding and delivered what became equivalent to a grant for many businesses with unprecedented eligibility. Research has found that PPP had the largest positive effects on business activity, and these infusions of capital improved sustainability and empowered small businesses to stay open and reopen. A pilot forgiveness program for businesses could jumpstart community-led economic development by investing in entrepreneurs whose success is delayed or denied by lack of access to capital to fund their startup business and growth. This program could also give priority to companies who benefit underserved and disadvantaged communities. Our second recommendation is that federal agencies incentivize use of systems and tools that flag biased decision-making. We gathered evidence that lenders and investors continue to need and want help to ensure that they fund all members of the communities that they serve. NWBC's 2024 literature review of STEM entrepreneurship found, for example, that women were underrepresented among applicants for federal research funding, and that requested less money than male counterparts, and received an average of $40,000 less than men from first-time research awards. This is true even though women entrepreneurs often have better credit risk profiles than their male counterparts. There is a mismatch between the revenue potential of women-owned businesses and the investment they attract. We believe more individuals will make choices to invest in women when they have more timely and accurate indicators about this bias that could influence their decisions. Our final recommendation is that agencies further develop innovative loan risk mitigation programs. Over the past year, our subcommittee learned more about the promise and potential of special purpose credit programs that rely on revenue and cash flow, as well as other factors, to extend credit to people who otherwise would not have access. Additional diverse and innovative solutions are needed to more fairly and broadly evaluate the creditworthiness of aspiring entrepreneurs and small businesses outside of traditional credit scores and collateral sources. 2 ideas include developing philanthropic partnerships that combine private and publicly funded loan guarantees, and creating regulatory space for lenders to recognize financial, accounting, and tax knowledge as assets, therefore lowering risk for potential borrowers. That concludes our access to capital recommendations overview, and I look forward to the Council's continued partnership with organizations who can help turn these recommendations into reality. Thank you, and next I'll turn it over to Councilmember Kathy Cochran.
Thank you, Karen. I'm pleased to be here with you all to share our final set of policy recommendations from our 2024 report from NWBC's Inclusive Entrepreneurial Ecosystem Subcommittee, which I chair. As a consultant and a small business champion, I have had the honor of working with institutions that serve rural, tribal, and underserved communities, and bearing witness to the overarching importance of networks to women's entrepreneurial success in sometimes very challenging contexts. Our subcommittee's policies recommended were written to achieve the vision of a country in which women and men have equal access to help managing life outside the business, and in which public and private sectors work together toward that purpose. Our first recommendation, found on page 49 of the report, addresses the imperative of expanding access to childcare by highlighting opportunities to contribute in-kind public support to the system. For example, the federal government could offer unused space in public buildings to childcare businesses for free. Congress or state governments could authorize the creation of childcare exchanges, similar to the Affordable Care Act exchanges, for finding providers and care options. Playing off of Seema's earlier statistics, research says there is a $7 return to the economy for every dollar invested in early childcare. High quality care is not only crucial determinant of the long-term well-being, but necessary infrastructure that enables people, especially women, to get to work. Access to safe, affordable childcare is an economic imperative. The incremental steps we recommend acknowledge that importance and set the table for transformational change in how we fund and provide care. Our second recommendation is that SBA and NWBC collaborate to regularly evaluate and report on WBC's effectiveness, producing material they may use in private fundraising. Women business centers are incredibly valuable resources. They serve 36% more clients in 21 than they had just 2 years earlier. And with women's business ownership increasing rapidly, that trend seems likely to continue. As important as they are, these institutions struggle to serve their communities and report on their accomplishments while managing modest amount of funding. In the future, regularly updated data with WBC's positive impacts could support their development efforts. NWBC and SBA could commission analysis that captures WBC's contributions in supporting childcare related businesses and local, state, and national economic ecosystems, in addition to the number of entrepreneurs and businesses they serve. Our third policy recommendation is that federal, state, and local agencies support and advance universal entrepreneurial education for both children and adults. We were inspired by the conviction that early and consistent exposure to business owner role models is likely to increase girls' future entrepreneurial activity, as is active encouragement to pursue ownership. Research indicates that exposure and socialization help determine the professional pathways. For example, a 2018 study of more than 1.2 million patent holders found that not only were people who grew up in high innovation areas more likely to invent as adults, but the effects were gender specific, meaning women were more likely to invent if they grew up in environments included higher shares of women innovators. We are in a moment for considering responsive interventions like national standards that incorporate entrepreneurship into core curricular requirements to ensure universal exposure. We have an acute national need to encourage previously untapped talent to develop STEM small businesses to participate and invest in American programs, and to help avert future supply chain disruptions. And our final recommendation for 2024 is that we explore improved federal data collection that quantifies WOSB's contributions to their communities. Business and economic development data often focuses on measures of revenue earned and jobs created. Women-owned businesses tend to underperform male-owned counterparts in these areas, but they create value in other ways. For example, women entrepreneurs are frequently inspired to create businesses that solve problems they have encountered and bring services that have been lacking to their communities. A federal working group could create and test survey topics that strengthen understanding women-owned businesses and their achievements. We imagine these might include new business provisions for essential goods and services, mentorships, formation of business partnerships with other entities, and activities or renovations in previously unused spaces. And now I'll turn proceedings back over to Seema to provide some concluding observations about these recommendations and progress we've already seen towards our realization. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you once again, Selena, Karen, and Kathy, for representing your colleagues and sharing the work. As we noted earlier, the publication of our annual report and announcement at this public meeting of our policy recommendation is the culmination of a year-long of work. But in another sense, it's also just the start of a year-long process of informing and educating our stakeholders. The Council would like to ask for your support as we share these recommendations widely and describe everything we learned that led us to these directions. When you hear discussion of topics we have raised and addressed, please tell colleagues about NWBC and share our report and the evidence that is put inside. Also, please share information with us about relevant events and consider council members when speaking opportunities arise. Most importantly, we eagerly welcome your submission of ideas, resources, and experiences through our website and general inbox, which is info@nwbc.gov. I wanted to highlight some points of progress that we've seen in just the past few months around the issues at the center of our 2024 policy recommendations. In the area of access to opportunity, SBA has implemented a transformational change in business certification by bringing online a new platform through which companies can simultaneously request all certifications for which they are eligible. Before unveiling the platform, SBA successfully cleared a backlog of pending application for WOSB status. The consolidation is a positive development for small businesses and the future feasibility of adopting standards that form the basis of widespread collaboration between entities that administer and use certification. It's just going to make life so much easier. In the area of access to capital, NWBC is encouraged by the publication of the Department of Treasury's National Strategy for Financial Inclusion and its embrace of the use of alternative data to serve those who currently have no credit history or limited credit history. Our 2024 policy recommendation prioritizes increasing opportunities for women who are unserved and underserved in current financial market, not because of weaknesses in their business plan or their management abilities, but simply because they lack experience and assets. We believe that expanding the terms of access to credit can help increase the resources available to women with potential and great ideas. Finally, I'm particularly pleased to note that the Department of Commerce has now made more than 20 awards on the CHIPS and Science Act to advance manufacturing and related businesses that committed to supporting community childcare capacity. As a condition of participation, these projects are already coming to fruition. For example, an early learning center in Boise, Idaho, supported by Micron, began operating in September 2024. We began to get a sense of scope and importance of these commitments from reviewing pledges from Intel also, which plans to expand manufacturing operations in 4 states, in addition to providing up to 16 weeks of birth-related leave and other related options and reintegration support. The company offers subsidies and pre-tax accounts to employees to help pay for care, operates a backup care program that helps pay emergency expenses, and has negotiated with providers for priority and discounted registration for its parent employees. It is also creating a navigation tool that will help its employees find childcare options and investing in expanding capacity in the communities in which it's building. We will continue to follow these and other relevant developments and to note alignment between NWBC's policy recommendations and the steps taken by our colleagues in government to increase entrepreneurship and fuel our economic growth. And now I cannot think of a better qualified guest speaker than Virigina Littlejohn to join us next to address how NWBC and our recommendations can advance and serve as a model and inspiration for women business owners around the world. Ms. Littlejohn is one of the founding mothers of NWBC, whose vision organizing prowess, and standing among key policymakers led not only to the enactment of the National Women's Business Ownership Act, but also to the evolution, endurance, and present work of NWBC. Her career includes past services as president of NABO, Global Strategies, and TradeBuilders.com, and vice president of the World Association of Women Entrepreneurs. She currently is co-founder and president of Quantum Leaps, a firm that conducts research, creates policy recommendations, and runs incubation programs for female entrepreneurs. In that capacity, she serves as Senior International Advisor on Women's Entrepreneurship. She is the co-head of the U.S. delegation to the Women 20 gathering of G20 countries and global coordinator of the W20 Women Entrepreneurs Act initiative. She also has served as a senior advisor to the OECD and the International Trade Center, a joint agency of the United Nations and World Trade Organization. It is a great pleasure. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Virginia Littlejohn.
Thank you so much, Seema. Do you all hear me?
Yes, we do.
Great. I wanted to share with you a story of transformation, one that began with a strategic encounter over a shrimp bowl and led to a revolution in women's entrepreneurship in the U.S. The year was 1988. Jillian Rudd, NABO's national president, stood at a congressional reception next to Congressman John LaFalce, chairman of the House Small Business Committee. With the strategic insight that would come to define our movement, she seized the moment. Would you be interested in holding a hearing on women's entrepreneurship? That simple question sparked a chain of events that would change the landscape for women entrepreneurs in the United States. Jillian Hope Eastman, an attorney and our national VP for public policy, and I, a past national president of NABO, met with the committee's staff director a few days later. Don Terry was the father of 4 daughters and no sons. We quickly realized that we had not just an ally, but a huge opportunity. The committee needed expertise and resources. We had both. What happened next was nothing short of remarkable. A group of about 10 of us from Capital Area NABO, CEOs of PR firms, advocacy organizations, event planning companies, government contractors, and legal practices brought our full expertise to bear. Most of us had already proven our strategic abilities as delegates to the 1986 White House Conference on Small Business, where NABO had demonstrated unprecedented influence. The scale of our impact at that conference cannot be overstated. Despite having just a fraction of the membership of major organizations, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and NFIB had 100 and 200 times more members respectively. Tiny NABO, with only 2,500 members, secured 12% of the delegates and 15 of the state chairs or co-chairs. Our framework for the Future Manifesto was a testament to our vision. 25 of our 26 policy proposals made it into the final White House Conference report. These weren't women's issues. They were fundamental business concerns: prompt pay, patent issues, international trade, faster revision of the standard industrial classification codes to reflect growth in the services sector and rapid technological changes in the economy. This bold approach put NABO and women entrepreneurs on the map, generating unprecedented media coverage and making mainstream business associations eager to have NAWBO delegates as members and board members. A handful of our members even became cover girls on business magazines. Building on this momentum, we turned our full attention to HR 5050 in 1988. For 2 months, we practically put our businesses on hold, focusing entirely on the hearings. We identified 5 critical policy issues: access to federal contracts, comprehensive counting of women-owned businesses. At that point, we thought the government thought women only earned $10,000 a year. Creation of women's business centers, establishing the National Women's Business Council, and removing the archaic requirement for male co-signers on women's business loans. When HR 5050 received its number, a deliberate and timely choice, NAWBO mobilized with remarkable efficiency. We identified and prepared every witness, crafted most of their testimony, briefed committee members and staff with bipartisan neutrality, wrote pointed questions for committee members, secured bipartisan congressional support, drafted the legislation, found sponsors in both the House and the Senate, managed media relations and photography, and led the lobbying effort for passage. Though we had to temporarily put aside federal procurement due to strong opposition, we succeeded in getting everything else into the bill. The most powerful moment came from Lillian Lincoln's testimony. As the first African-American woman Harvard Business School graduate in 1969, she founded Centennial One in 1976. Her shocking revelation galvanized the legislators, telling them that because she had no living male relatives, her 17-year-old son had to co-sign her business loan, despite her business providing his sole support. By 2001, when Lillian sold her company, it employed 1,200 people and generated $20 million in annual sales. The bill passed with strong bipartisan support, and President Reagan signed it on October 25, 1988. Both Jillian Rudd and I served 4 years on the resulting National Women's Business Council. Hope Eastman was not on the council, but her skilled legal and advocacy work was instrumental in helping to create the council. Since then, I've worked to extend these successes globally through various initiatives, organizing 5 women entrepreneurial best practice conferences for the OECD in Paris and Istanbul, working with the International Trade Center in Geneva on women's corporate procurement, government procurement, international trade, and data standardization, building new organizations to address gaps in finance, market access, and certification, collaborating with UN agencies and World Bank institutions to strengthen the women entrepreneurial ecosystem. Currently, my focus is on the Women's 20 and Women's 7 initiatives for the G20 and G7 countries. The G20's scope is expanding. It already includes the world's 19 largest economies, plus the European Union, and this year will welcome the African Union as a member. The presidency rotates annually. Starting in Turkey in 2015, we then went to China, Germany, Argentina, Japan, Saudi Arabia, Italy, Indonesia, and India. Then to Brazil in 2024, South Africa this year, and the United States in 2026. Each year, the Women 20 develops a comprehensive policy communique addressing such issues as women's entrepreneurship, STEM, climate change, women's health, the care economy, and violence against women and girls. As global coordinator of the W20's Women Entrepreneurs Act initiative, known as We Act, I'm focusing on implementing priority policies affecting women's entrepreneurship as a cross-cutting issue. This includes access to finance and markets, public procurement, STEMpreneurship, and entrepreneurial approaches to climate change, food sustainability, the care economy, and angel investors as problem solvers. Digital transformation and strategic adoption of AI with appropriate safeguards are particular passions of mine. Many of our policy recommendations align closely with the Council's work, creating opportunities for powerful collaboration. As we approach the United States G20 and Women 20 presidency in 2026, the Council's knowledge and resources will be invaluable to share with other countries. Aaron, can you please show what I'm about to talk about next? The documents we developed for the 86-country OECD conference in Istanbul in 2004 show the impact we can have. The Council's best practice compendium as one major publication with 24 best practices, and then the policy and progress publication, which showed the history of how policy developed for women's entrepreneurship in the US. These became roadmaps for nations worldwide. We distributed these to 86 ministers of commerce, 86 SBA administrators, and women entrepreneurial leaders from around the world, creating lasting impact through American thought leadership and advocacy. Today, we face new challenges. In this era of growing backlash against DEI initiatives worldwide, we must reframe women's entrepreneurship not as a diversity issue per se, but as an economic imperative. Women entrepreneurs create jobs, drive innovation, strengthen communities, and grow GDP. So this isn't about special treatment for women. It's about really smart, shrewd, and strategic economics. The visionary mission that inspired NWBC leaders during the 1986 White House Conference and led to HR 5050 and this very council is more crucial now than ever. Women entrepreneurs must become bipartisan bridge builders in our fractured society. We must help heal the divisions that separate us while driving economic growth that benefits everyone. To the council members here today, your role is more vital than ever. You stand at the intersection of history and future possibilities. I call upon you to catalyze action, to trailblaze new paths, and to demonstrate that women's entrepreneurship isn't just about women. It's about building a stronger, more innovative, and more prosperous economy and democracy for all. Thank you very much, and I welcome your questions and comments if we have time.
Thank you so much. It's so important the way you've put it, that it is an economic imperative and we need to change the way things are looked at. You know, this is not special treatment. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for your leadership. We're here because of your grit and resilience and really not taking no for an answer. So thank you. We're going to go to full mode so that the council members can be on, and then they can raise their hand for any questions they may have. I don't think we're in gallery mode yet. We're definitely not gallery mode. Yeah, we're away. Okay, awesome.
So Seema, if you, Tanae, or Aaron can select.
Of course.
Thank you.
I have, let me see whose hand I have on now. Dr. Williams?
Yes. Thank you for all the work you have done, an amazing presentation. My question to you, I loved your closing comments about it's not just about us women moving it forward. Could you suggest to us and also the audience any recommendations that you might have as far as including our allies, as far as moving women entrepreneurship forward?
Well, first of all, I think coalitions are absolutely critical. We've always known that. But I believe the need for economic research is even more important. And frankly, Shakenna, you're on my call list for this week or next week, because I want to engage Babson and CWEL in this process. I also want to engage women Nobel economic award winners, and there's a cadre of such researchers around the world who can be enormously helpful. We also need to catalyze male champions of change. When I mentioned Don Terry, we started noticing in the early 80s that men who had only daughters and no sons often became our most ardent advocates for issues. We had them testify before Hill hearings for the American Bankers Association, etc. But I think that Babson and CWEL and other researchers can make the business and economic case by deep drill down on issues that will make people have an aha reaction and not just think, oh, it's women wanting handout. Thank you for that question.
I look forward to our conversation. Thank you.
Likewise.
I guess I would ask, what would be your recommendation? And I guess you already covered it, about making sure that we engage organizations in a bipartisan way. Is it going back to what you were saying, just showing the numbers and making sure that we show that the 10.3 trillion that we keep talking about, that how much would be added to the economy. But if you could discuss that a little bit further.
I view the United States as being unbelievably fractured right now. And it's not the only country that is very fractured right now. I think COVID took a terrible toll. I think inflation had a big impact on things. Every country has its own politics, but many, many countries are dealing with a DEI backlash right now, and so forth. The economic piece is part of it, but I've always seen women entrepreneurs as bridge builders within the entrepreneurial community and within society generally. At the global level, women have often been peace builders. For example, in Northern Ireland and in Rwanda, it's spelled Rwanda, but pronounced Rwanda. There's so many cases where women have really, as mothers, as nurturers, as people focused on the future generations and so forth, we are concerned about the quality of life on the planet, the quality of human existence on the planet, etc. And I think there really is an important role for us as bridge builders. I do not know the current statistics in terms of party affiliation, but during the time that we were doing this work in the 1980s, NWBC was about 40% 60% Democrat, 40% Republican, and 20% independent, whereas the male business community was much more predominantly Republican in orientation. So we really were able to be bridge builders, but I think it moves beyond just women's entrepreneurship, also to helping rebuild our country through positive economic messages, through being bipartisan, by building coalitions, by reaching out to people who would normally not be people that we have been dealing with. The impact also on boys and men, if any of you have been studying Richard Reeves and Scott Galloway, that is a big issue also. And I think we as mothers, as wives, as sisters, etc., I think we need to also focus on creating better opportunities for boys and men. One of the things that implies is we also need to pay attention to, in my opinion, apprenticeship training and other things that create opportunities in manufacturing that appeal to people who may not have had the opportunity to go to college. Women in many countries now are at 60% of those going to college, whereas men are only in the 39s or 40s, and this is in industrialized democracies. So I see us as bridge builders, as peace architects in many countries, etc. And that is part of what I think our mission is as healers on this fractious planet.
I love that. Thank you so much. Tene?
I can't believe I'm already off mute. I'm glad I didn't say anything. Thank you so much, Virginia. You know, the moment that we were able to reconnect, it's just been an awesome experience and an awesome honor to connect to you. I was going to ask a real simple tactical question, which is, with your work with W20, I know that most of it will be sort of committee based, but are there opportunities for the public, thus us and coalitions, to participate, to view, to listen into meetings? Is there any public component of some of the work that you're doing so that we can connect directly? In addition to the resources that NWBC and other coalitions and collaborators can also support your work, is there anything else you need for the W20?
The biggest opportunities will come in 2026 when the United States has the presidency. Typically, there is a great deal of outreach in the country during the year of the presidency. 6 major events to up to 20, depending on which country. We have not begun to think about that at this point. We also need to engage with the Trump administration once they are constituted and when they get to the point of appointing certain key positions. But in the meantime, the co-chair of the U.S. delegation, Ann Simmons Benton, and I co-chair the U.S. delegation. We are looking at creating an advisory board to prepare to get ready. We have about 10 delegates right now that represent the different issues that we're focused on. Molly Gimmel, who I believe is on this call today representing NAWBO. Molly and I are both working on access to markets issues, particularly public procurement relating to both the Women's 20 and the Women's 7. But we also, Anne and I feel a need to also have an advisory group to help us prepare for 2026. I used the work that Julie Weeks did as your predecessor, Tene, when she was the executive director of the council with those 2 major reports. Those were absolutely transformational for so many different countries. And I hope that we would be able to catalyze something like that within the council, because always women's entrepreneurship, finance, access to markets, and ecosystem development and STEMpreneurship are mega important issues. But there's so many other issues that are really important that are cross-cutting with women's entrepreneurship. So climate change, the care economy, and the angel investors are, someone earlier was in her comments talking about the problem-solving roles. Oh my gosh, our angel investors focused on problem solving, and many of those are unique issues for women. There are a number of angel investors who were focused on things like ovarian cancer, endometriosis, and other issues that are critical issues for women. And so those kinds of issues have entrepreneurial ramifications in terms of businesses that get funded, et cetera. I'd love to work closely with the council on identifying some of those things and jointly establishing and identifying with input from Shakenna and others on research that can really be high impact and transformational.
Good morning, Virginia. This is Councilmember Samantha Abrams. I am just so deeply honored to meet you, to know that I have the privilege of serving in this capacity because of your work. You are a trailblazer, and we are just so incredibly grateful. You talked a lot about women and our role in not just in starting businesses, but how critical it is, because it really solidifies our economic standing, not just here in the United States, but globally. And I can also share with you in visiting countries and speaking with many members in government and private sector, including Rwanda, this council has been so interesting to them and wanting to model what we are doing here as in supporting policy in this capacity. What are your thoughts? I'll tell you what I like to say, and then you can share your thoughts and reactions to what I'm going to share. I like to say that supporting women in a transformative way, that we're not looking for handout, is an economic imperative, but it's also a national security imperative. Because when we have strong economies, our countries are sound, not just economically, but in a physical security, right? So what are your thoughts on the linkages in economic and security, in like that link between having the physical security and economic security?
Absolutely spot on, Samantha. The chair of the UK delegation, the head of the UK delegation, is a security expert. Some of the things I was saying about democracy and fractiousness a few minutes ago, I see as extremely related to that. When you have disgruntled citizens, when you have people who are irate about inflation, which was a natural outcome of COVID and what needed to be done to control COVID, country after country around the world is having elections that are enormously influenced by the issue of inflation. That destabilizes governments, creates fault lines, creates animosity within the haves and have-nots in different countries, et cetera. And I consider it a critical issue for society, whether it's more of a democratic country or a country that is less democratic but needs to still keep its citizens happy. So I'm glad you brought that point up, and anything that destabilizes economics does have an impact on national security. And also on a country's stature and impact in the world.
Thank you so much. And again, I can't wait for us to do more work together. And thank you for your incredible leadership, service, and foresight.
Thank
I
you.
know we want to go on with this conversation, but I'm getting the nod from Tene that we need to go on. Thank you once again, Virginia, really for your visionary leadership that has propelled NWBC's achievement and increased women's business ownership. We look so forward to staying connected and really hope to contribute and to learn from international exchange and best practices. And please count on us however you think for whatever you're doing with the G20 and the G7.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the opportunity to meet this wonderful team of the future today.
Absolutely.
Here.
Now, in our next session, led by Councilmember Dr. Shakenna Williams, we are going to take up the exploration and education of our community around our 2024 policy recommendations. We're grateful to have the chance to hear from practitioners and experts about successes and expansion opportunities for universal entrepreneurial education. I'm so pleased to turn the meeting over to Dr. Williams to lead this conversation.
Thank you so much, and Happy New Year, everyone. Getting my notes up. So the title of our panel today is Inspiring Women and Girls Through Universal Entrepreneurial Education. And to give more time to hear from our panel as I'm summarizing my opening remarks, and we're also going to have a special presentation. But as we look to the future, it's clear that supporting women entrepreneurs is critical to the success of initiatives like the Invest in America legislation. Women remain underrepresented in STEM and related fields, which are essential to revitalizing infrastructure and driving innovation. The NWBC's 2023 review highlighted significant gaps in earnings, funding, and also opportunities for women-owned businesses, so especially the high-growth sector. This conversation kind of stems from, no pun intended, from our inclusive entrepreneurial ecosystem policy recommendation that you just heard. We know from research that exposure to role models in entrepreneur education can inspire more women and also girls to pursue entrepreneurship. That's why expanding entrepreneur education across all levels of instruction is key to creating a more equitable and innovative economy. So today you're going to hear from our panelists who will share their insights of how we can increase exposure and also provide tools needed to empower women and also girls in entrepreneurship. But before we hear from our panel, we're going to hear from Nifty that's going to give us a brief presentation.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us today. My name is Meg Stewart, and I'm the Executive Director here for the Capital Region of Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship. I'll let my colleague introduce herself.
Good morning. My name is Jenny Fay, and I'm the Chief of Staff at NFTE. Thanks for having us.
Our goal with our quick presentation here before we dive into the panel is to give an overview of just the general state of play of entrepreneurship education, the crucial role entrepreneurship education plays, especially as we look at it through the lens of preparing our students for life after graduation, high school graduation, and then we'll give a little bit of a demonstration of what one of our lessons look like. We're going to actually start this off, if you'll go to the next slide, with a typical way we might start a classroom off. The next slide, please. Which is doing an icebreaker. One of the key things we can do in education, as a former principal, educator myself, in one of the things we're seeing as a trend in education is doing a better job of connecting what is happening in the classroom for our students with the skills and the knowledge they'll need to succeed once they graduate, whether that be going on to college or entering into the workforce. So just to get this panel kind of thinking moving through, I'm going to ask you guys a couple of questions we might ask our students at the start of a lesson. So this first one here, and you can put your answers in the chat to get everybody involved, is what percentage of businesses in the US are classified as small businesses? And I'm just going to give a minute for folks to put in. Okay, you guys have a higher average than most of our students who do this lesson, which I think we should given our audience right now. I will tell you, when doing this with high school students, the majority of them honestly say answer A. I think because students and because general knowledge of businesses is, when you think about business for a lot of our students, you're thinking about the conglomerates, right? You're thinking about those huge businesses, Apple, Amazon. And a lot of our students don't know the crucial role that small businesses play in driving and leading our economy. Of course, the answer is C. The statistic lover in me, it's not 99% according to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics. It is actually 99.9%. They are the backbone of our economy. And we want students to know that because most of these businesses are started by people just like them. True or false? 1 in 5 businesses fail in their first year, and you can enter a T in the chat or an F. All right. You all know this, and it's important to know for our students, because your first time isn't going to be your last time, might not be your most important time. So it is T, true. About 20% of businesses, according to the Small Business Administration, do fail in their first year. I really enjoy when our students get the opportunity, which is really rare, to see a successful entrepreneur. Every single entrepreneur we've ever had on our panel, whether they own $1 million company or a smaller company, always says, I have failed. And usually they have failed multiple times. It's their ability to fail, pivot, innovate, and do something different that actually is what makes them successful. And last one coming up here is, who was the first self-made millionaire, female that is, entrepreneur? There might have been some before her, but she is by far the most well-documented. Just write your answer in the chat. Any guesses? Yes. All right, if you go to the next slide. Yep.
Meg, they might be.
Oh, yep, next slide, please.
The slides are slightly.
Oh, so sorry, go through. If you'll go back. And one more forward. Just to make sure, and I make sure that every single female, before there was Oprah, there was Madam C.J. Walker. She was an activist, a socialist, an entrepreneur, a philanthropist, and it was really amazing what she was able to build in the early 1900s. This is such an important one. She, of course, was known for the Madam. It was a Walker company, manufacturer is what she started. It was beauty, hair care products for African-American women. She saw a need that was not being met in the current market, and really set something up that lasted and made herself, again, that first self-made millionaire. So again, we want to get our students thinking. We want them to see, there's already mention of statistics and reports that show the power of exposure before. With that, for our students, I'm going to turn it over to Jenny Fay here to dive a little bit deeper into policy and the state of play, especially as you're looking at K-12.
Well, thanks so much, Meg, and thanks for that great warm up with everyone. We're so excited to be here with all of you today, and thank you to the council for inviting us to tell you all a little bit more about entrepreneurship education, the state of play here in the United States, and what we do at the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, or as we call it, NFTE. So just a real quick overview about NFTE and the organization. So our mission is to ignite the entrepreneurial mindset with unique learning experiences that empower students to own their own future. We have been around for around 40 years, and our founder came to create entrepreneurship education and the Entrepreneurial Mindset Index, or as we call it, the EMI, through his work in South Bronx schools during the 70s and 80s. He saw a real need to engage with students in a different way to get them to learn. And he found that when he employed his entrepreneurial expertise and taught them business lessons, they learned a whole host of really essential skills that provided them with a lot of economic mobility, a lot of opportunity, creativity, and of a whole host of skills that he then turned into the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship and our curriculum. Next slide, please. So just to give you a real quick overview, these statistics are from our 2022-2023 school year, but we served about 45,000 students here in the United States and globally. Our demographic breakdowns were fairly split between women and men, so women and men students who received our programming. The majority of our students are part of free and reduced lunch eligible schools, so we really look to create curriculums that serve underserved and underrepresented students around the country and around the globe. You'll find NFTE in all sorts of different places, including high schools and summer camps. We have post-secondary programs and community-based organizations. I'll talk a little bit more about our programming in a minute, so I won't dive into those. But we have a variety of different ways that we also administer our programming, both in schools and out of schools. We have in-person. During COVID, obviously, we went virtual and now have adapted that to a hybrid model. We talked a lot about mentorship and volunteerism already, and I think I have a slide that will talk a little bit more about that, but NFTE's really secret sauce is in those volunteers and mentors, the individuals that provide our students with that real world, industry-specific guidance and mentorship that really helps them to see themselves as entrepreneurs. Next slide, please. So let's dive into what entrepreneurship education is. So there are a variety of definitions, but the one that we use and that is most widely understood is a structured teaching and learning process that is aimed at developing individual skills, knowledge, and attitudes to create, manage, and grow new business ventures. I would also add to that entrepreneurship education helps young people and students think like entrepreneurs. So it's not just a program to create entrepreneurs. We know that about 25% of our students go into entrepreneurship and go on to own their own small businesses. But for those other 75% of our students, we see them go on to do really successful, amazing opportunities, regardless of what they choose to do in life. So they're really helpful, essential skills that provide that entrepreneurial mindset, as we say. So the goal of entrepreneurship education is to empower individuals to become successful entrepreneurs and foster economic growth and create job opportunities. We see this in a lot of different ways, and I'll go into a little bit on what this all means in a moment. Next slide. So there are many different organizations I just wanted to highlight that are doing this work across the United States and globally. There are several that we are in a coalition for policy and advocacy work, and then there are some additional others that also do this work here in the US. So Virtual Enterprises, Build.org, Project Lead the Way, the CAPS Network, us at NFTE, Junior Achievement, and NAF are all organizations that have in-school and out-of-school, virtual and hybrid programs that provide entrepreneurship education to a variety of students here in the US and abroad. Next slide. So let's deep dive into what we are seeing in entrepreneurship education in the larger field of education policy as it pertains to our work. So there are 5 different areas that I wanted to highlight today to talk about the connections to entrepreneurship education and what's happening in the larger education policy field. Those include STEM opportunities, experiential learning, industry connections, credentialing, and school choice. And I'll go into each of those in a little bit more detail on the subsequent slides. But I just want to note that these are topics that apply directly to entrepreneurship education, but they are also broadly education policy related opportunities that we're seeing across the field. Next slide, please. Perfect, thank you. So on STEM opportunities, and I was so excited to hear that that you all were discussing STEM opportunities and that connection point beforehand. We are seeing the connection between STEM and entrepreneurship education as a cross-cutting sector. So really beginning the opportunities with students to engage in STEM education, but adding in entrepreneurial mindset, skill set building enables them to not only learn the STEM material that they are excited to do, but then take that and learn how to start their own business or use the entrepreneurial mindset to enhance that learning. Both in-school and out-of-school opportunities are available in this, and we're seeing a really great way, a really great opportunity here. Next slide. So for industry connections, one of the greatest places that we've been able to build our students' abilities is through volunteer and mentorship opportunities. Creating a pipeline to industries for our learners has enabled us to not only take our curriculum out of the classroom, but also give our students a real-world view of the types of places that they could work, the types of things they could do, and really works both ways. Meg can speak much more directly to this because she gets to have the pleasure of working directly on the program side and seeing what our students see in the classrooms and what our teachers see. But it's really a way to add such a benefit to our students, and it's something that industry is actually asking more for. So we have partners at NFTE that are actually directly asking for more volunteer and mentorship opportunities. Likewise, more schools and school districts that are asking for the same. Next slide. On the topic of credentialing, this is the test-taking exams that are provided on a whole host of areas, but one of them being entrepreneurship and small business. We're seeing an increased interaction between the need for, or the request for those tests and the opportunities available to our learners. So there's a really great synergy with workforce development in this field that we think can continue to build. And I'll talk a little bit about what example of that in a moment that we're specifically doing, but it's a really exciting opportunity that we're seeing. Next slide. And finally, school choice. I think we're all very aware that the education, the world of education is changing, and that the world of education is becoming more entrepreneurial. There's all sorts of different school choice opportunities that are coming up across the country. And I think that cities and states really need to start paying attention to what's happening, whether that be with funding or the alternative options that are cropping up in a variety of ways through charter schools and micro schools. We need to make sure that our students are equipped with an entrepreneurial mindset in order to best engage in opportunities that come up, but also that our schools are adapting to those changes. Next slide. So just a couple of examples where NFTE is seeing our work play out in all of those big policy topics. We have a variety of different programs that we offer to engage in a whole host of ways. So on the topic of STEM, as I mentioned, we have a partnership with an organization called TIES, which teaches STEM curriculum, and we offer our entrepreneurship curriculum in addition to what they're receiving with STEM to couple those two opportunities together. For industry connections, we partner with large organizations such as Ernst & Young and PayPal to have a variety of volunteers and mentorship opportunities available to our students. We have innovation days, which are sponsored by a variety of our organizations, which are both in school and out of school time for our students to learn additional skills and engage with our volunteers and mentors. On the credentialing side, the best example that we currently have is in the state of Florida, because Florida recognizes the significance that entrepreneurship plays in fostering their economic resilience and social mobility. They've really prioritized the development of a vibrant entrepreneurship ecosystem. So they encourage students heavily to explore self-employment. And as such, they provide incentives to students and schools to take the entrepreneurship and small business test. And as a result, we partner with them to offer a prep program, our ESB prep, to allow to help our students prepare for that test. Florida has really placed a strong emphasis on this, and we've seen really positive results. And then when it comes to school choice, I did want to note there's a couple of different places, both with the Perkins 5, which is up for reauthorization, and then one I didn't note on here because unfortunately it did not pass at the end of last Congress, which is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act, or WIOA, which in the final bill did have a very specific carve out or update, I should say, to the language, which stated that entrepreneurship education programs were eligible for WIOA funding. So it's a really important clarification. It used to say just entrepreneurship education. And that addition of programs in the text is a pretty significant one for us because it specifically calls out programs like NFTE as eligible for We Owe It dollars. Next slide. I also wanted to highlight that organizations such as ours are moving away, not away from, but into the policy space in opportunities like this, but also in other places such as our policy brief series, which is called NFTE Nexus, which every month we come out with a policy recommendation around entrepreneurship education. And I would welcome anyone who's interested, please take a look. And with that, Meg, I will turn it over to you to give us a really exciting little deep dive into what our programming does.
Thank you, Jenny. If you'll go ahead and go to the next slide, please. We've already talked. So this is going to be just a quick overview of what a typical lesson would look like in an NFTE classroom. All of our lessons go back to what we call the entrepreneurial mindset. This was developed in conjunction with EY, and what it really is about is taking a look at entrepreneurs and then honestly career success. What skills do you need to be successful? And it pulled out basically these 8. We also have a way to measure these 8 skills through our EMI assessment, which is the Entrepreneurial Mindset Index. So students get an opportunity to see where their strengths lie and where areas of need lie. All of our lessons go back to one of these core skills. To the next slide, please. Usually we try to start off with rooting our students in local entrepreneurs so that, again, they have that representation. They can see different type of entrepreneurs. Please take a look at Mary Blackford. She is an amazing woman entrepreneur doing great work here in Washington, D.C. She took classes in Ward 8 in her D.C. public school and is the creator of her business, Market 7. Market 7 is all about basically bringing fresh food into a food desert, which is Ward 7. She noticed that when she was looking for fresh food, she couldn't find grocery stores, had to take 2 metros to get to a local fresh grocery store, and is right now building a brick and mortar called Market 7 that's going to focus on Black-owned businesses. You can see a quote of her on the next slide. And again, we would argue, and many of the different organizations that you're going to hear from on the panel will argue that the earlier we can start entrepreneurship education and exposure, the better. Career doesn't just start when you are graduating from high school. It starts before that. You can't dream what you don't know. And that's really what we want our students to see. What are the different businesses out there? What are the possibilities? And this is Mary's quote about the impact of taking NFTE and being exposed to a business entrepreneurship curriculum when she was in high school and how that really changed the trajectory of what she did. Next slide, please. We're just going to walk you through, this is unit 1. So this is where our students really start diving into developing an entrepreneurial mindset. Next slide. Again, I said we have those 8 skills from what we call the Entrepreneurial Mindset Index. This one is a key one, comfort with risk. It's why I started us off with a statistic around how many businesses fail in that first year. Go to the next slide, please. So this is what they're going to do. Our curriculum is what's called project-based learning. So students are taking real-world examples and figuring out solutions to them. So again, we want to make that connection between classroom and the real world strong so that students feel like the skills that they're practicing developing in the classroom will serve them once they do graduate. Next slide. Next slide. We usually start with that kind of thought-provoking question, getting them thinking about risk, when have they failed. Next slide, please. This one is going to be all about getting them used to working with limited resources, being innovative, and that comfort with risk. We usually introduce key terms. Go to the next one. And then we'll dive into usually a product innovation game. Again, this is where they're taking kind of a real world example and using their skills to develop a solution. This is going to be investigation. So it's a product innovation game. It's where they're not going to be graded on finding the correct right answer. It's not a math problem. This is all about what can you do with the resources you have and recognizing that oftentimes we have limited resources to solve the problems that we're facing. Go to the next slide. So they're going to break into groups. A lot of our work is really crucial to group work. We want students to be able to recognize their strengths, recognize the strengths in others. And usually when you're on a job, you are working in groups to solve those problems. Next one. So we were going to have you guys do this, but switch to a virtual format so you can pretend you would do this, and how would you tackle it? Usually, again, what we're going to do is we give them a brown paper bag. So each group is going to get a brown paper bag. It has those items in it. Usually it's just random household items. And then we're going to tell them, all right, your job is going to be in the next 15 minutes to build a product using the given materials above, again, to solve one of the problems that's below. These are the problems. We try to pull, again, real world problems for them to think about. The first one is going to be helping towns who have rust in the drinking water. The second one is creating a toy for a child with autism and that they could use to communicate. And then the third problem is going to be creating something that provides equal internet access around the world. This is one I know that when we've done this has led to lots of discussion about internet lack of access, especially during the recent pandemic, how students tackled that, how we can avoid that again. And then at the very end, which is such a crucial part of what we do, there is a ton of public speaking in and woven into our program throughout. We want students to be able to present their ideas, present their solution, and then get the feedback from their students and do that ideation process as they're going. Next slide. And then we talk about it. What were things you learned through, right? What are the key things that you learned through this? Being comfortable with risk. Usually meaning that you're not going to find the exact right answer. This might be your first prototype. How can you ideate on that? How can you make it better the second time?